now 4-0 in Ice Wars, the clear #1 favorite in this division. What do you look forward to next?
Well, I want to do whatever Iceberg wants me to do, but I'm right now here to put out an open challenge to anyone that wants a shot at me. I'm putting it out there. I'll fight any of you guys. I don't care who you are, where you come from. Boxer, MMA, doesn't matter. I'll fight anybody.
Love it, champ. Good luck.
All right, all right. I am here with Mr. Diamond Hands, Daniel Amesbury. Thank you for joining me today, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
So the art of hockey fighting. Now I know you were involved in lacrosse too. So before we get into the actual boxing part, I want to know how could you compare the difference between fighting on the ice and fighting in lacrosse? Now, obviously, this is the ice factor, but as far as maybe just the technique, as far as grabbing the person, or you don't have to get into too much details, but what would be the biggest difference as far as fighting on the ice as the fighting in lacrosse on the field?
Yeah, so this is, I would say, probably one of the most commonly, one of my most commonly asked questions. I think I get it every time because a lot of people are curious, especially the Americans, because they don't see as much box lacrosse down here.
Yeah, because in the States they don't fight in the
they
States,
play
right?
field lacrosse in the States, and there's no fighting. So box lacrosse is starting to grow into the United States, but it's mostly predominantly a Canadian sport. But yeah, so the biggest differences that I've kind of figured out over the years is on the ice, there's the dynamic of you're essentially kind of holding each other up and kind of working with each other, even though you're fighting. You're still kind of balancing off of each other. So you're able to actually grapple, I think, a little bit easier and a little bit more because there's the balance factor where, whereas in lacrosse, grappling seems to be a little bit harder because guys are so much stronger on their feet.
Yes.
If you try and tie a guy's arm up, it's generally a lot easier for them to just rip their arm out of the grab. So lacrosse is more of usually a stand back, string out, shootout kind of fight. Whereas you can definitely do a lot more and be a little bit more technical in a hockey fight just because of the dynamic of being on the ice and stuff like that. But I find lacrosse fights, obviously there's going to be a little bit harder punches coming at you. I think that the lacrosse fight obviously is a little bit more intimidating just because, it's like a street fight. So you can punch a lot harder. If you get rocked in a lacrosse fight, you don't just slip and fall like you do in hockey. If you get hit with a big punch in hockey, you just fall and the fight's over. Whereas in lacrosse, your head might go down, but the fight's kind of still going. So it's definitely a little bit crazier, I think, in lacrosse, but just being a smaller sport, generally don't run into as big guys. And then there's a fewer amount of guys to select from. So I think the overall caliber of hockey fighters is greater. You'll get a better hockey fighter, a higher caliber hockey fighter, but definitely I think the lacrosse fights can be a little bit more intimidating at times just because of the factor of being on your feet and not really being able to tie a guy up as well. So
interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. I like that detailed answer. Just for me personally, I played street hockey and I can skate, but I can't obviously skate to play hockey. So just for me, I have a extra respect for hockey fighters just because I'm thinking to myself, as confident as I am, with my hands on the ground, I can never imagine having to balance myself while trying to fight somebody at the same time. That is a whole new ball game. So I have a next level respect for hockey players. Seriously. All right, getting into the boxing. So when did you introduce boxing into your training program? At what point of your career?
Yeah. So, it's always, I guess when I started playing pro was my first time dabbling a little bit with boxing, but I was never consistent. It was always just, a couple classes a season kind of thing, or, do some one-on-ones here and there. It wasn't until I actually retired. The first time I retired in 2014 from hockey is when I kind of started dipping my toes in the water a little bit more with boxing. I was playing lacrosse at the time. But yeah, that's kind of when I started, but it was never really a consistent thing. It was always like a come in and come out,
Mm.
I'd always be like, oh, I want to fight. I'd love to have a
Yeah,
fight, but I just never fully committed. So it was always kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out for me with lacrosse and all the other stuff I had going on.
yeah.
But definitely have ramped it up a lot lately, especially with the ice wars and stuff like that that's been going on.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so but it's been going on. I've probably been, like my first boxing class was probably like, 10 years ago, but like I
Yeah, yeah,
said,
yeah.
it wasn't a consistent thing until more recently. Now it's starting to be a little bit more of a I've kind of just worked it into my regular workout routines and stuff like that. So
Nice, nice. So about 10 years ago, so even though it wasn't consistent, like, you still kind of held on to some of the things that you learned and stuff like that, and applied it right to lacrosse and ice. So how
yeah.
could you say like how could you say that boxing helped you on the ice? How could you
Yeah,
say
so
that?
I
Or
personally am noticing now probably an answer that you probably wouldn't really expect, I guess, to get first. But one of the things I'm going through right now is with my boxing. Like my coach that I'm training with right now, he's trying to get me to calm down a lot more because I kind of
mm,
am a little panicky, a little too, a little too edgy, and like I
yeah,
want to come in too aggressively and stuff. And so this, like I said, this is probably not an answer you would have expected to hear right off the bat. But the one thing I'm benefiting now is I'm starting to realize like the psychological thing of now when I'm on the ice, I have the same problems on the ice that I have in the ring. Is
mm,
is I'm a little intense. I'm a little too panicky. I'm too anxious when I get the puck.
mm.
So now that I'm starting to calm down in the ring, I'm able to remember that when I'm on the ice and start to calm down a little bit on the ice.
There you go.
And
There you
that's
go.
what I'm going through right now, as far as what I'm benefiting from, along with all the other things, obviously, with just like hand-eye and stuff like that, and just being coordinated. Balance is a huge one too. Just knowing how to stand and how to balance with your shots and stuff like that. I think I get a lot of benefit from. I did a lot of like core rotation, like punching
Yes.
form to kind of put
Yeah,
power on your punches. And I
exactly.
find all that stuff relates to any sport, basketball, like anything you're doing,
Yeah.
whether it's baseball swing, a baseball pitch, a hockey, like a slap shot in hockey, whatever it is. Like I find they all have the basic athletic movements. So, and boxing is like a really good foundation for all other sports as far as learning those athletic movements and learning how to use your whole body to get more
Yeah.
power in whatever you're trying to generate power in, whether it's hitting a ball or throwing it or whatever.
Exactly, exactly. And you mentioned the first thing you mentioned, the mental thing. You're right. It's usually not the first thing that people mention. It's usually something that I bring up when I'm training athletes to let them know, like, this is not just the physical part. This is the mental part to apply some of these things uh, um, of learning on into your sport. So I'm 100% glad that you brought that up. The mental part, just little things like, you have that little bit of, you want to chase after a puck. You have that little bit of extra energy to stay focused and make the right pass to the right player, right? Like you said, not panicky and just friggin' chuck the puck wherever.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad you brought that up. Um, so out of all the boxing exercises that you've done over the years, which is your favorite one, and which one would you say, like, kind of applies best to adapts best to your sport, hockey and lacrosse?
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I do. One of the most common things that I've been doing lately, um, I wouldn't say it was like it's my most like obviously hand pads are always like the most fun part, and there's so
For
much
everyone.
benefit that comes. Yeah, like that's the best. Like you can't wait till that you get past that grind at the beginning to get on the pads. That's always the fun part. But the one thing I'm seeing, like I'm kind of always going into right now, like what's fresh in my mind. What am I doing right now? What is the most transferable thing for me now? And one of the things I've been doing a lot of, like I said, core rotation stuff with like medicine balls for punching
Yes.
power and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I'm finding it very good for my shooting mechanics, just because it's, like I said, getting my whole body involved. And then I go onto the ice and I notice my shots getting harder just through that.
Yes.
So that's one
Yes.
of the big things that I've really noticed the everything's getting harder as far as on the ice, and I'm just getting a lot more power, just rotating my body properly. But I think like the hand pads, going back to the hand pads, just the hand-eye coordination and just like honestly, like we are talking before, the psychological stuff, like,
Yeah.
with boxing, there's so much thinking going on when you're first doing it, and you're trying to get to the point where you're not thinking anymore, and you're trying to
Yes,
create
yes.
those neurological
Just
pathways.
react. You're trying to just react instead
Yeah,
of think.
create those pathways in your mind so you don't have to think as much. And I think that's kind of, like I said, that's one thing I'm focusing on as much as I can in hockey, is trying to get the reps in over and over and over so I don't have to think, and just like boxing. So that's like one of the things with like hand pads, and like even when you work with a new coach, like you could have been doing hand pads with one guy for 10 years, and you go to a new coach and you don't have that flow at first, so you're having to
Yeah.
think a little bit more.
Yeah,
Whereas it
yeah, yeah.
challenges you got to create those new pathways and learn to flow with the new coach and stuff. So I think that, like, those two things are definitely the most transferable things, and the things I'm benefiting a lot from by being in the boxing ring.
100%, 100%. So after seeing the benefits of adding boxing to your training program, do you feel confident like recommending that all hockey players and lacrosse players add some boxing to their training programs to help them in their sport?
Yeah, like honestly, like I believe so. I have such high thoughts about boxing in general, and honestly all combat sports and training in combat sports. You know, even not even just boxing and hockey, like I said, like these athletic movements, I feel like boxing is like the most basic of athletic movement, like to build that foundation to throw a hard pitch, or to hit a ball hard, or to throw a lacrosse ball hard, or to shoot hard. I feel like one of the best places you learn that is in boxing. So I
Mm,
think I would highly recommend it for lacrosse and hockey, but on top of that, I'd highly recommend it for anybody, playing any sort of sport that's involving that standard athletic movement of a core rotation. But definitely hockey and lacrosse, like there's not much that fits better with those sports. And one of the things I say to like some of the guys I work with in the summertime, um, I always tell the kids, like even for guys that aren't fighting, that aren't fighters or whatever, in the game of hockey, like fighting, it's culturally in the game. So
yeah.
it's something that people subconsciously have in the back of their mind, no matter what.
Mhm.
So having that confidence of boxing makes even a skilled player better, just because
Yeah.
it takes a little bit of weight off their shoulders, and
Yeah.
not having to worry. They know if they need to handle something, they can handle it. But I always tell people, and that transfers into life in general. Like,
Yeah.
you might not be the most confident person to walk into a room in a group of people because of social anxiety and stuff. I know we've all dealt with it before.
Yeah.
I've dealt with it and stuff. And I think that boxing is a great way to build that confidence and gain that confidence, even just walking into a room of people. So I highly suggest boxing for people from all walks of life, but definitely hockey and lacrosse. It's a great workout.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that last part up too, because like I tell a lot of people too that um, the non-athletes, for lack of a better term, that I tell people, I make sure to emphasize, like, I'm not teaching you how to fight. I'm teaching you how to defend yourself. Right. I'm
Yeah.
not teaching you how to fight so you can go out and sidewalk and just start with somebody. But if
Yeah.
somebody starts with you, at least you have the confidence to defend yourself, not to,
Yeah.
do anything crazy. Also, I forgot to bring up the point before, as far as doing pads on your Instagram. I was very happy to see one of the drills that I started doing too. Um, Doing pads on your rollerblades to simulate the ice. Oh man, I was so happy when I saw you doing that, because that was
Yeah.
it's one of the best things as far as simulating closer to balancing yourself on the ice, right? So
Yes, we kind of, with the last Ice Wars, me and my coach Caleb, he fought in the UFC. He's great. We work together. He's one of my good friends, and we kind of were just kind of messing around, and we're like, well, what can we do different? This is something that people haven't done before. Like, people aren't really doing this kind of training. It's not a very common thing. So we kind of started playing around with it, and we just said, let's try the rollerblades, and then it just became something that seemed to work good, because you can there's a lot of punches that you can throw that I didn't even know really that I could throw on rollerblades that you can't throw on your feet. because you're able to actually like get your whole hips turning way quicker and do like a
Yes.
little C cut while you throw a hook. So we started messing around with that, and it kind of put a lot more tools on my tool belt. And then obviously it adds just the skill of the balance while throwing a punch. It's really hard, so it just kind of throws that extra curveball in there that just makes people more athletic in general. So I really like doing it. It seemed kind of silly at first, but as we went on it and I started to realize how much better I was getting because of it, I was like, I need to upload it. I need to share that. It was an effective part of my training for sure.
Hell yeah. Like to hear that. Okay, that's it for the boxing. I want to just get more specific about the fighting now. When did you decide or realize that was going to be like your role? And with that being said, I always, remind people like the days of just being a goon hockey fighter are gone. Like you actually have to have skill nowadays. It's not, so I know you actually have skill.
Yeah.
But when did you decide like, all right, this is going to be my role? If anybody on the other team starts some shit, I'm going to be taking care of it. When did you decide that?
It kind of happened like pretty organically. I think probably the same way that it happened for a lot of guys. For me, it was very organic, like just trying to make the team. I was in junior. It was my hometown junior team. I always wanted to play for them since I was a kid. I watched them since I was young. So to me, I never really thought I was good enough to play on the team. I just wasn't there psychologically to gain the confidence and stuff. And I was trying out, and I knew I was on the bubble. Like I was a defenseman. I wasn't the greatest, but I was like, I could play there. But I was like, there's a couple other guys that were around my skill level. So I knew I was battling. And then I just ended up getting in a fight in tryouts, and it went really well. And I kind of surprised myself. And then I remember going to the room, and I went into the room, and my first thought is like, oh no, I'm going to be in trouble because, in minor hockey, if you fight or if you fight at school, like anytime you fight, you always get in trouble. Like it's always like a bad thing when you fight, right? So I'm in the dressing room, and the first thing that's crossing my mind is like, oh no, I'm going to get cut. Like I shouldn't have done that. And then I remember the coach came running in, and he was like surprised. Like he's like, you just beat up a 21-year-old, like what's cool? Like, well, we didn't know you could do that. Like, well, they basically offered me a contract right there, and I was kind of like caught off guard, and then I was excited, obviously. So then I ended up, made the team, and then like I said, the whole year it wasn't like I was by no means the toughest guy in the league. Like I just kind of just kept chipping away, and
wait,
then,
how old were you when you beat up the 21-year-old?
I think I was 16 or 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then, like I say, I went the year, and I was fighting guys like my kind of weight class, my kind of caliber. And then near the end of the year, or maybe it was the next year, I'm not sure, but I remember I fought like the toughest guy in the league. And then when that happened, I remember my coach was like, no, you're not fighting him. No, you're not fighting him. Like and then I'm like, dude, we're losing 6-1. Like I'm fighting him, like put me out. And then he looks at me, he puts me out, and he's like, hey, like hang on, like be careful kind of thing. Right. And I ended up beating him up pretty good, like broke his nose, like did really well. And I surprised myself, and I was just fired up. And then we came back and won the game. We were down 6-1 in the second period. So then I kind of realized what this tool was, what the skill was capable of doing, of getting my team energized. And then after that, that's when I really realized I had something special, and that this wasn't just, this is something that I could probably do something with. And then I kind of just, at that point, I've always really liked the role when I first started fighting of just being the guy that stood up for the team. It really felt natural, and it felt good to me to just take care and make sure the boys were, if anybody messed with anybody on my team, I'll handle it. Like, don't worry, you guys sit down, I'll take care of it. Like, that's my job. And it always felt really good and natural for me. So it just, as it grew, it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and then just got to the point now where, like I say, I kind of made a little bit of a career out of it, and been doing it in lacrosse and hockey. And like I say, it's a lot different. Like when I fought in Ice Wars, it was a lot different fighting at Ice Wars than it was when I fight with a team, because at Ice Wars, I was fighting. I mean, I had a team, but it was different. I was out there fighting. I was by myself. It was about me and my fight. Whereas when I fight in a game, it's like I'm fighting for these guys behind me. It's a lot different. So, like I've just always liked that role. And like I say, it happened pretty organically, but as it came, it was kind of like these realizations kept coming, like, oh, okay, I'm pretty good at this. All right. I went through another one. I'm like, all right, this is good. And I always enjoyed it. I always had fun with it. So, I think the challenge and the just the overcoming of the fear is what I think I enjoyed on top of it.
Yes.
That kind of really made it enjoyable for me. Just
Yeah.
constant overcoming these little challenges of just psychological battles within myself
Hmm.
that I think a lot of people just assume that we don't, as fighters, have that. We don't have to, we don't get scared or we don't have to worry about. It's like, no, man, like we have
Yeah.
that. We just know want to overcome it. And that's kind of like
Yes.
something we enjoy as fighters is just challenging ourselves mentally.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. 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 That part there is especially when before it happens, you got that feeling, and then afterwards, it's like that feeling of satisfaction. It's like you can't describe it. It's like, man, I
yeah,
went through that difficult situation, and I'm good. It's
yeah,
hard to describe that happy feeling.
yeah.
Um, all right, let's get into this Ice Wars. I'm very interested to know about this, how this came about. I have a lot of questions about this. First of all, is there? It doesn't seem like there's any weight classes because every single person. I got my other laptop on here and I'm watching all these fights, and every single person you fight is like twice your size. Even though it says you're 6 foot 220, but like all these guys I'm seeing are like taller than you and just look wider than you, and you're
Yeah.
smashing all of them. So, just first of all, let's rewind it. How did this Ice Wars start for people that don't know about it, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so like AJ Galante, he was the guy kind of the brains behind the operation. He basically I had this idea. It had happened a couple times before in the past, but he had the documentary, the Netflix documentary. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but
That's right. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. I definitely
yeah.
gonna go
Yeah,
watch it
like
now.
a great and strongly suggested to anybody. Like it's one of those ones you turn it on, you're like, I can't turn this off. Like I gotta
What's
watch
it
this
called
whole
again,
thing.
just to make sure?
It's called Untold Crime and Penalties, and it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really good. So basically, AJ, the guy behind this Netflix documentary, just they had the idea. They're like, let's bring this tournament back. They'd done it a couple times before, and they're like, let's do this. And it was basically, like you said, it was a heavyweight tournament. Is it was the original event, and at first, the heavyweight weight class was over 205, and then the other cruiserweight was under 205. I think is what they started as.
Hmm.
And so when I signed up, I didn't know, what I was getting into really. I was the first guy signed, so I didn't know who I was fighting or whatever. But he did kind of AJ did warn me. He said there's some big boys, and I just said, listen, man, I've been fighting the toughest guys in hockey for my whole career. So like size really has never been. It's just I've always been the small guy. So
Hmm.
whatever, like I don't care who it is. Let's just do it. So I signed up first, and then I started seeing the other guys signing up, and I'm seeing their stats, like how big they are, and I'm like, holy shit, like I've never done this. Like these guys are big, like so that's kind of how it started. I actually, when I first heard about it, I seen AJ make a post about it, and I was proactive. I was the one messaging him. I was sending him videos. I was sending him my hockey DB. I was like, listen, like this is what I do. I've been waiting for this
That's
my
what I
whole life.
do.
Let me show people what I can do here, because like this is like my I'm like a black belt in this game, so like I'm waiting to show people what I got, so
Yes,
so that's
yes.
kind of how it started and how I got my foot in the door.
Nice, nice. And can you just briefly go? You don't have to go through all the rules, but like, what is it? Is it a timed? Is it because I noticed that you get knocked down, but you get right back up and start fighting again. So how give me some of
Yeah,
the
so basically they just doing the first tournament. It was tournament style, so they're crowning a king in each division. So there's going to be a champion in each division. So the way they're doing that is they're going to have a tournament for every weight class. So the original, like I said, I was in the heavyweight weight class, but everybody that I fought is now in the superweight heavyweight division because they've now split us up. So I basically won the super heavyweight tournament, but since I'm a heavyweight, I'm put in the heavyweight division.
Wow.
So the first one, it was 2 1-minute rounds. There was an 8-man tournament, and it was basically last man standing. So we had to fight 3 times in one night. Two
Wow.
one
This
minute
is all in the
two one
same
minute
night?
rounds. Yeah, that was all one night. Yeah.
My
So
God.
so yeah, it was 2 1-minute rounds, and then like I say, that if there was if somebody gets knocked down or whatever, they just stop the clock. You go back to your corner, make sure your helmet's back on, and then you start again until the 1 minute's up. And I think like being a new sport, there's going to be new rules, and the sport's going to grow and stuff like that. So hey, James, go. Sorry,
That's all good.
both my kids just crashed into the bedroom here.
That's all good.
So yeah, like I think as the sport grows, there'll be like different rule changes. I think they're gonna at some point, maybe I was talking, we were talking about maybe differentiating a knockdown from a slip,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
kind of hard. It's gonna take time to grow, but basically, yeah, like if somebody fell, we just let them get back up, regroup, and go again. So if there was a draw going in after the 2 rounds, then they were doing a 30-second icebreaker in the first tournament, which I think they ended up making a 1 minute icebreaker, which was like the overtime round.
Okay.
And then in the last event, I was just fighting in a championship fight, so they did 3 1 minute rounds because they're just kind of trying to play around with it and just learn, see what guys can handle, see what works and stuff like that. So for my last fight, I did a catch. It wasn't even really a catch weight, but I fought one of the super heavyweights, and we did 3 1 minute rounds.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably what they're going to do for the championship fights, or they're going to play around with it. But yeah, 2 1 minute rounds. There's like four. I'm not sure how many judges, but there's judges, and they have a point system. I think it was a 10-9 point system, just like boxing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they kind of went with the flow. Like I say, it's new, so we're all learning and stuff like that. And everybody's input counts, so we're all just trying to grow together and figure this all out. So.
And this is are they traveling with this, or is this one was in BC, but where else, like how often
So
do these happen?
Yeah, so actually the first 2 events were in Edmonton, Alberta. So we did them just because it was a good venue and stuff like that. That was where we were able to get our sanctioning body to do it and stuff like that. So as far as I know, they're going to be traveling. I think the next event could be in the States. I'm not sure. I haven't been told. Like we don't really know yet, but hopefully the next event will be coming up soon. And yeah, like it'll be they want to do it all over. Like I know they've talked about Europe and the US and the name Ice Wars International. They have intentions of being all over and traveling around with it and just really spreading the sport. I think the reason they just did it in the first venue, they did it there twice just because everybody kind of knew the venue and it was easy to do it in the same place again, and trying to sharpen the knife, sharpen the sword in the one place before they started moving it around. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is cool, man. If if the next one, if there's anyone in Ontario, I'll definitely attend. Is there
yeah.
any way to watch these online too? I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I think they're gonna be a little bit. There's gonna be more these next fights. There's gonna be a lot more ways to see them on pay-per-view. I think they're gonna try and get on all sorts of streaming services. But for right now, it's on Fight TV. It's like an app. You can either download it on your TV or download it on your phone. It's like the Fight app, FITE, and they
Okay.
have
Oh, okay.
they stream them on there. Yeah, so it's same place you can go see Bare Knuckle and stuff like that, and all those other promotions. So.
Nice, nice, nice. So, final question here. I don't know if you had any announcements or anything that you're up to that you want to announce or anything like that. But I really appreciate you taking your time to talk with me just to get a little bit more detail
Yeah.
about boxing and hockey and lacrosse. Anything else that you're up to these days? You want to
Yeah,
announce
so
anything?
like we're literally you'll probably be one of the first places that announces it. There's a couple of, like, we haven't really put it out there yet, but I just signed with Barstool Sports to fight in to fight in a boxing match at Rough and
Okay.
Rowdy. I don't know if you've heard of Rough and Rowdy, but it's like a tough man contest that Barstool puts on.
Yes, I've heard about it. I haven't watched it, but people have told me about it. I'm definitely going to be looking for you now.
Yeah,
Definitely going to be watching you now.
so that's on December 9th. So that's coming up pretty soon here. I think it's
Okay,
like 18
okay.
days or something out. So, and that's in Providence, Rhode Island. And I think for streaming that, it's on Barstool's website. I think it's like Rough and Rowdy. You'd have to search it out on Google. I think it's roughandrowdybrawl.com or something like that. I'm not totally confident on that, but
Okay.
yeah, so that's kind of like the big thing that we have coming up right now. Me and AJ, the guy who
Ice
put on
Wars.
the Ice Wars and
Yeah.
had the documentary there. He's the kind of the one who buttoned it all up for us. So yeah, so that's kind of our big thing we have coming up, and hopefully that kind of helps us promote Ice Wars as well. And we'll kind of see where it goes. I think it'll be really fun though, and like I said, hopefully get us some more exposure.
Perfect, man. Perfect, perfect. Mr. Diamond Hands, Daniel Amesbury. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
And
having me.
we'll keep in touch. I'm definitely going to be keeping in contact with you, especially before that December 9th date, just to
Yeah,
get some more details on that. And yeah, man, we'll go from there. Thank you again.
awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Cool, cool.
1, 2, 3, smack that thumbs up for this video. Smack it, baby!